The sea waves gently rocked the boat. The majestic sail, on which the sailors had painted the Eye of Horus, was engulfed by the chilly wind. The painting was a protection token, as their mission was dangerous. They were crossing the Red Sea, preparing to be stationed at the edge of the known world. Today, we'll go back in time to 4,300 years ago and follow this man. We're going to explore one of the oldest Egyptian fortifications that we have a trace of. My name is Sarah. Welcome to the Mists of Time. For this expedition, a single ship carrying about 50 people was sufficient. 20 of them were sailors, and 30 were skilled warriors. They were being sent to a fortification of the utmost importance. Their mission was to deliver valuable supplies and relieve the previous garrison. The area where this fort was situated is known today as the Sinai Peninsula. The area was not entirely under the control of the kings of Egypt, but here it was possible to find something that was highly prized. Some stunning light blue stones known as turquoise. This stone was so precious that very complex operations were organized in order to mine it. But in comparison to the average expedition, the one we're following was quite small. According to records, such mining missions could involve over 3,000 people. At this time, the goal was simply to relieve a garrison and bring fresh supplies. Okay, I hear you. A garrison? Armed soldiers? Yes, I know you generally don't need warriors to mine turquoise, but this is a rugged and dangerous land. Nomadic tribes lived here, and from time to time they ambushed the miners. We are almost arrived. Look over there, on the horizon. Do you see it? That's our destination. It's a circular stone fort with a wharf nearby. It will be the crew's home for the next months. The sails were carefully lowered, and the ship was maneuvered to the wharf using oars. The exhausted previous garrison was already there, eager to return home as soon as possible. The fort was situated in the El Marca plain. This flat seaside land is surrounded by tall mountains. The fort served as a secure base for quarrying in the nearby rocky valleys. The most important of these valleys were the terraces of turquoise, which are now known as Wadi Magare. As you can see, the fort was situated in an extremely barren area. It is understandable why high walls were erected to guard it. We can easily picture some prying eyes watching the fort from among the mountain peaks at all times. The warriors must have found the thick, strong walls to be of great comfort in a dangerous place like this. The fort was 44 meters in diameter. The walls were 7 meters wide at the base and 4 meters and a half tall. The building material of choice was small, rough limestone blocks, and the blocks were stacked one upon the other with some clay mortar to bound them. The fort's walls were not that stable. After its construction was completed, cracks started to appear. So a buttress wall was built to reinforce it. Eventually, the gate too became unstable and it was walled off. The only way inside was via a ladder, which could be quickly removed in the event of an enemy assault. The previous tired garrison finally sailed away. Rotating troops was essential, as the fort could not be left empty. Otherwise, the nomadic tribes would have easily taken it, making the next quarry expedition extremely hard. Without this supply hub, it was simply impossible to move up to 3,000 people in such a hostile region. However, soldiers could not be left here indefinitely, because this region could not support the construction of permanent villages. The soldiers are finally inside the fort. The place is minimal, to say the least. There were no structures, only a vital water well and 4 posts that held a sunshade in place. We're only observing a small expedition, but when larger groups arrived, tents were erected everywhere, both inside and outside the fort, effectively turning it into a small town for several months. Let's take a look at how the fort was organized. There was a cooking hearth formed by some flat stone slabs. Around it, the soldiers placed some pots. They were full of animal fat used for cooking. Not far from the hearth, there were big jars used to store flour and beer. Because, a military fort in the middle of nowhere wouldn't be complete without some beer. The fort served as a supply hub as well as a defensive position, but it also had an industrial purpose. Some raw clay was stored in a location, allowing the garrison to produce any jars that were required. During the long, boring days, flint blades and arrowheads were also made. The most important activity, however, was the processing of turquoise stones. They were brought here from Wadi Magaram, which is about 20 kilometers away. In the fort, the stones were broken, revealing the precious blue core. The garrison got the majority of its supplies from home, but the sea was only a short distance away, so why not make the most of it? The garrison ate a lot of seafood, mostly sea urchins and a mollusk known as chitons. Yummy! As you might expect, life inside the fort had to be difficult. Water was scarce, and the soldiers were subject to sandstorms, sudden winter flash floods, scorching sun during the day, and freezing temperatures at night. Guard duty was tedious, and expeditions to the surrounding valleys were both dangerous and exhausting. One day, the small group will return home, and another will take its place. However, an order will be issued at some point. The isolated outpost must be abandoned. But first, it must be made unavailable to the Sinai nomads. The final expedition will demolish a large portion of the southern wall, remove any useful items, and return to Egypt, leaving the fort alone to be buried by the desert sand, only to be rediscovered more than 4,000 years later.